Hello Year 10, welcome to our lesson on the Plains Indians, the importance of the ghost dance and Wounded Knee. So what I need you to do, just very carefully, is put today's date, put classwork, and just put this heading in your book. And on the next slide, we'll explore exactly what happened with the ghost dance and what Wounded Knee was all about. So you might need to pause the video now just to get the title in. Okay, last lesson you did some research on the ghost dance and the Wounded Knee. You should have answered some questions. You should already have an outline in your head of the events of the ghost dance and Wounded Knee. Let's look at them in some real detail now. So the ghost dance movement. All the problems on the reservations led to an atmosphere of despair. It was in that atmosphere that the final tragedy was played out. Just before dawn on New Year's Day, 1889, a Paiute holy man called Vovoka received a vision. An Indian Messiah was coming. If the Indians remained peaceful and danced the ghost dance, then a new world would come. All the whites would disappear, the buffalo would return, and all the dead Indians would come back to life. This ghost dance religion spread rapidly across the reservations in the West and reached the Sioux in 1890. It coincided with a time of great hunger on the reservations due to two factors. First, the Sioux rations had been cut by the government. Second, the drought in the summer of 1890 led to the failure of the Sioux's crops. In this climate of hunger and despair, the ghost dance had a great appeal and it spread quickly among the Sioux. The Indian agents were seriously worried. They tried unsuccessfully to ban the ghost dance. When that failed, they called in the army to help. The army treated it as a war situation. An attempt was made to arrest Sitting Bull because of his involvement in the movement. This was carried out by Sioux Indian police. His followers tried to prevent his arrest. A scuffle broke out and Sitting Bull was shot dead by one of his own people, a Sioux policeman. Several of the police, as well as several of Sitting Bull's followers, were also killed. Many of his followers then fled to join the band of Bigfoot, another of the chiefs leading the dance, whom the army was also moving to arrest. So on the 28th of December, the army, soldiers of the 7th Cavalry, caught up with Bigfoot and his band. They were taken under guard to camp at Wounded Knee. Next morning, the soldiers obeyed orders and moved to disarm the Sioux. At least one Sioux warrior resisted, and in the confusion that followed, firing started. Were the 7th Cavalry looking for a chance for revenge for the Little Big Horn and the murder of Custer and all those soldiers? Regardless who was to blame, the soldiers were ready for trouble. They opened fire with repeating rifles and 4 Hotchkiss cannon. By the time the firing stopped, 146 Indians and 25 soldiers were dead. The Indian dead were 102 adult men and women, 24 old men, 7 old women, 6 boys aged between 5 and 8 years, and 7 babies under the age of 2. As one soldier said, it was a thing to melt the heart of a man, if it was not stone, to see those little children with their bodies shot to pieces. Afterwards, the many Indian wounded were taken into the agency church. Thomas Tibbs, a newspaper reporter, wrote, "Nothing I have seen in my whole life ever affected or depressed or haunted me like the scenes I saw in the church that night. The Indian dead were left where they had fallen for 3 days before being buried in a mass grave." So this awful massacre marked the end of the Plains Wars. That was not all that was ended. As one survivor Black Elk later recalled, "When I look back now from this high hill of my old age, I can still see the butchered women and children lying heaped and scattered all along the crooked ditch, as plain as I saw them with my eyes still young. And I can see something else died there, in that bloody mud, and was buried in that blizzard. A people's dream died there. It was a beautiful dream. The nation's hoop is broken and scattered. There is no centre any longer. The sacred tree is dead." So, now we've looked at the story of the ghost dance and the Wounded Knee, we just need to move on to our central task. So on to the next slide. So our task is quite straightforward. Obviously you need to reread pages 110 and 111, we just looked at on the last slide. We need to write up details on the ghost dance and Wounded Knee. I've actually completed the consequences for you because they're quite important. So if you look at the consequences of Wounded Knee, the consequence 1 was actually the US public, they supported the massacre. The soldiers who took part in the massacre were praised for their actions. Most Americans thought the Plains Indians were naturally too wild and hostile to whites, and that if they could not be controlled, they should be killed. So no one was condemned for the murder of women, children, babies on that day. Consequence 2, resistance of the Plains Indians was now totally ended. The massacre at Wounded Knee marked the end of the Plains Indians. The resistance of the Plains Indians was finally broken, and they would never ever again pose a significant threat to the United States government. So what you need to do, obviously, is you can do it as a series of headings, beginning with the origins of the ghost dance. Under that, you can put your notes. Then you can do a subheading, what happened to Wounded Knee. Under that, you can put your notes. And then obviously you can either copy my consequences that I've developed, consequence 1 and consequence 2, or you can recraft those in your own words, or you can reproduce this table. So you need to pause the video now and just complete your research and notes on the ghost dance and Wounded Knee. And once you've done that, you just need to upload your completed work. Thank you.